This podcast is part of the Pull Up a Chair podcast network. Let's build community through connection, conversation, and collaboration. This podcast is sponsored by Lever Consulting, editing with a purpose. Check them out at leverconsulting.com for a free consultation.
Hey friends, you're listening to the Cat and V Show. Pour yourself a juicy cup of tea, grab a seat, and get ready for us to dish. Welcome back to the Cat and V Show. So what are we talking about this week, Kat?
You mentioned me living like a nomad, so maybe I'll just hash out some things about that. And I think we've talked about it before. I'm currently in Denver, Colorado, which is probably one of the most, it's just one of the most home-like places I've been, and it's just felt very natural to be here because it is very city-like with all the other perks of I just learned how to ski this weekend, which I never had, I didn't even think I was gonna learn how to ski, but then I was with because we were with Jordan's friends, and his friend's fiance was oh, come on, you gotta learn how to ski. And I was just debating it because it was a little expensive, but I was just you know what, it was a little more expensive, but I'm glad I did go because I picked it up a lot faster than I thought I would. And I think I'm more for investing in experiences. So I had a really good time. So I don't regret spending money on that good time. But anyway, that's kind of a little bit of what I've experienced here in Colorado. It's all this, it's just it's like home with the added addition of a lot more nature and open space than San Francisco. But we live in a studio loft, which is beautiful, gorgeous loft. Some of the decorations here are a little questionable. I'll have to send you a picture of this painting that creeps me out every time I look at it. But overall, natural lighting, gorgeous, high ceilings, gorgeous. There's just no separation between the bedroom and the rest of the apartment. And what I didn't realize was it's not Jordan and I can't coexist in it. It's not like that at all, because we can. It's just there's these little minor inconveniences that make our lives very difficult. Oh, not very difficult, just slightly difficult, to the point where it's just a little annoying. He has meetings during the day, which gladly they're not, he doesn't have one right now. So we have to coordinate around when his meetings are, because he has the big boy job. So when he's in his meetings,
The big boy job.
so when he's in his meetings, I have to keep myself occupied with something that's quiet. And when we're recording the podcast, as we've recently discovered, he needs to make a little extra of an effort to be quiet. It's just I think that a living space like this would be great pre-pandemic, but since people work from home right now, it's just kind of it's just a little more difficult than I would have imagined. But I can't not be grateful, because it's a really I'm in a healthy relationship with somebody, and we're living in this amazing city. There's just these little things that we have to work past. And throughout our travels, we've learned a lot about each other and ourselves and what we need in terms of our more permanent living space, which is the biggest thing right now, is that we need separating doors. We need a bedroom with a door on it.
Doors are a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it's just that little added extra, it's nice when you can walk. And I've always heard this from other people, because everyone and their mom will advise you to not live in a studio loft with your partner, because the simple ability to walk into a different room and shut the door is like all the difference in terms of feeling a little bit of like privacy and quiet and that type of stuff. Like even just shutting the door is like a little thing that I definitely didn't think was going to be a huge issue. I mean, it's not a huge issue. It's really not, but it's just like that added little piece of privacy can make a huge difference sometimes.
I see.
But yeah, but it's just like as a couple, I feel like not only the pandemic, because at the beginning of the pandemic, during like we had our own things that we were dealing with, right? We were like all, like in one place.
Yeah.
He had a separate place that he lived in that he would like sometimes come back and forth to. So if he did want to leave, he could. But we still like for the most part lived at my place. And it was like 2 months into our relationship where we basically had to make the decision, all right, so whose place is like the permanent place right now, you know, like, and we learned about each other really, really fast that way. Like, and we had to coexist learn how to coexist very quickly. And then halfway through the pandemic in September, Jordan was like, all right, well, he went to go visit his friend in Arizona. Cause like he hadn't seen his friend in years. And then he was just like, oh, he came back all like doe-eyed and like sparkly eyed and was like, you know what, we should just travel and like try living place to place. And I was like, I don't know. It's a global pandemic. And I don't know. He convinced me. And part of it was like, I don't know if I want to be separate. Like, what if we get stuck separate, you know? And that would be a huger issue for me. And he's just like, this is fine. Just trust me. And I was like, okay. So first month was in September was Arizona. And I didn't live with him the entire time we were in Arizona. That was actually supposed to be, his friend was supposed to meet him there and live with him, but something like, it just didn't work out. So I ended up he stayed a total of like 4 to 5 weeks. And I stayed 2 weeks out of that month in Arizona with him. And then he came back. And after that, we regrouped. Yeah. And Arizona was great. It was very hot. It was, there weren't a whole lot of people walking around, which wasn't like what we were used to in San Francisco or the Bay Area. Like a lot of people like walk. In Arizona, it was just so hot that I don't think people like to be outside very often. So, it was just very quiet there. And that was the different part of Arizona that I thought. But we drove up to Sedona. And I'm sure our listeners, you may know what Sedona is. It's like this giant national park filled with beautiful red rock formations and stuff like that. And for me, my like new agey hippie side was like, all right, I'm going to buy all the crystals while I'm here.
All the crystals.
You're gonna buy all the crystals, right? But yeah, so that was when Jordan bought his first crystal. We can talk about crystals some other time, but I don't think that's really the audience base that wants to hear about crystals. So yeah, that like Sedona was amazing. We're hoping to be able to go back and spend more time there. We only spent like a day, a day in Sedona. So we're hoping to do that again in like more like a weekend or a week or something. Anyway, that was Arizona. So we flew back, regrouped in San Francisco, and he found this little cluster of islands off the coast of Washington State, which I was not aware of. And I don't think he was aware of it because he just wanted to I think he was looking to stay in Washington. But like when you search on Airbnb, you see like the full map, and he just saw like this cluster of islands, and there are a few Airbnbs there, and it's called the San Juan Islands. And we stayed there. Not only did we stay on an island, we stayed on a tiny house on an island that had one general store that was open for like 5 hours a day.
Oh no.
And didn't even... Yeah, and it was just like, and we live like just far enough away from the ferry terminal that it was like a chore to get to the ferry terminal. We didn't have a car. So it was like, and we had these like really, really poorly kept bikes. that the Airbnb owners had. So like Jordan's bike was fine, but because I'm shorter, I had a different bike that was like slightly too big for me, and the seat was like falling off. And eventually we did get the owners to like come fix it for us, but like, oh my God, it was, and like added the rain of Washington State. Like, so I can't tell you how many times where we were just like biking in the rain to get to the ferry, to like literally we'd get to the ferry, we'd get off to the other side, then we'd have to rent a car. And then we'd have the car for like 1 to 2 days. And we'd like get all our chores done. Like we'd buy all the groceries, we'd buy all this stuff. And then we'd like try to use that time to like hang out over there, like explore over the mainland. And we have to drive back. And the tiny house is like, I don't know square footage wise, but just like, I want to say, you know, those like the little trailer things that they put on, on trains, like cargo trains, like those rectangular boxes. It's like about as big as that, maybe a little taller than that, but it's like it's built very the space is like very well used, like it's very efficiently used space. It doesn't feel super small, but like Jordan and I like weren't we didn't think about that when we packed all our stuff. So we had like way too much luggage, and it was fine for the first 2 weeks, but slowly entropy started to creep in, and it was just like, there was no room to do anything. And like, surprisingly though, I think that it had its own challenges, but, I don't know, if you were compare it to the studio that we live in today, it's a lot more space, but I think that he especially enjoyed the ability to walk outside and like be able to work and sit outside. We can't do that here. So like over there, if he walked outside, there was a little patio for him to put his laptop on. There was Wi-Fi, stuff like that. So it was almost as if there was another space for us, you know? So in a sense, it was like, it felt like a different space. But that was like I feel like it was funny because we decided to dive into the deep end with that. Because it was like, all right, we're like I guess we were like a little less than a year into our relationship at that point. But we're like, yeah, let's go try to cram ourselves in a tiny house on an island off the coast of Washington for our second stay. So it actually wasn't that bad.
And then after that, you guys went to Alaska, right?
Oh, we went to New York to visit his family. Oh boy.
I see.
It was just like, that was around the time that my grandma passed, like right before we left for New York. So that was just kind of like a really weird time for me. But yeah, I still really miss her. But I don't think I'll ever not miss her. So either way. So that was like, and it was already like planned in advance that we were going to, like, he was going to go see his family. And, obviously if he's going to go see his family, I'm going to come with him. And that was like the first time where I was going to meet his family. Oh, it was just like, you know, when you like first meet the family, for most people, it's like, oh, let's have a dinner together. Right. And then we go home.
Yeah.
or like we have a week together, and then like we go home, and then we have our own space. So Jordan and I had like our own house, but like his family helped pay for the house. So there was lots of rooms in it. So they'd come and go for like, I think they stayed for like 2-3 weekends total while we were there. We were there for like 6 weeks. And, the remainder of that, I was like in his parents' house waiting. And it was just like, for somebody who's just meeting their boyfriend's parents, and like also just having lost a very close family member forever, and like just like the holiday energy, and like lots of it was like, it felt like a lot for me. It was just like, wow.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be a lot emotionally.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, when you're with your significant other's family, it's like you have to be on like good girlfriend behavior, good, like you want to be at your best all the time. And for me, that was just a lot more difficult than normal because I just lost my grandmother, and trying to be at my best took a lot more effort than it would typically have if that hadn't happened. And it was just also like a very long extended period of time. Like, I don't, like, ever since moving out of my parents' house, I don't even spend that much time with my family, which is kind of, I wish I could. I just, like, my family isn't always the best for my mental health, as we've discussed before. So it was just kind of like honestly, his family's a lot easier to be around than my family. I'll give them that, because they don't fat shame me and make me feel bad for being who I am. But it's just being around different, like, just having different people around me was kind of difficult. Like, just new people, new whatever. Either way, it was fun because I got to see this part of New York that was like I'd never even heard of. He's from a very very small town, upstate New York, almost like bordering the Canada, basically. So I don't think a whole lot of people even know that it exists, other than that.
Oh boy.
Yeah, he was he's like of the small percentage of people that like actually leave his hometown, because a lot of them end up like going to college around there and staying there and kind of like, you know, build generations there, but he decided to leave for education purposes and stuff. So yeah, that was fun. Then Alaska. Well, the funny thing is like the reason why we decided to go to Alaska to begin with was because at that time when we had to leave New York, California's COVID numbers were so high, and the restriction at that point was like, you can't, like, if you come back, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. And just like, it was either do that or like just to travel somewhere else where it was like really cold. Because we had all this like winter clothing from living in New York with his family. So it's just like, all right, well, Alaska had like pretty, like their numbers weren't so bad and they had less restrictions. So we went there. I think we stayed there for 2 months, which is a lot longer than we thought we would. But Alaska, surprisingly, I liked Alaska better than New York and Washington. I want to say and Phoenix almost. Just because the sushi there was great, and I could be happy. It's just like, because it's like literally they're like off the coast, like the fish is like caught that morning and then slapped on the table and then sliced for you to eat. So like it was really great. The sushi there was great, and I saw snow fall for the first time in New York, and that was really cool. So I got to experience that again some more. So I spent like a full white winter basically
that's
watching
pretty
it
cool.
snow. And I don't know, V, like you haven't seen the snow a whole lot, right? Like
I've seen it like twice in my life, maybe.
Yeah, so that was like me before this whole experience. And Jordan played ice hockey as a kid up until like college, where he decided that it wasn't worth it anymore. And then so he's always lived in a place that was kind of snowy as like growing up. And it was really cool. I mean, I think our audience knows that. Do they know that he's a pothead? I don't know. He smokes a lot of weed. He's very I should just say that he's very 420 friendly. And we like in Alaska, they had like really good selection. Like I think Jordan said that his like some of the best weed was in Alaska. So like we've been trying to find places that are 420 friendly to stay at. So, of course, we're in Colorado, which is like stereotypically one of the most 420 friendly states in America. And I think that he said the prices here are comparable to California. Alaska was like way more expensive. Like I've been, you know, you've had a taste of some of the edibles because like I have some left over for the trip. But so edibles in Alaska were like $30 to $40 for like like for a normal container that you would find for $20 in California. Like, so it was like a lot more expensive. Yeah. So here it's like comparable. I think it's a little more expensive. Jordan said we have to kind of be wary of where we go so that he has his medicine, much like I have mine, which is another issue that I may have to talk to you about later. Now we're in Washington, and I kind of started with that. So I don't know. We may Washington. I mean, I meant Colorado, Denver. We're in Denver, and we started off with Denver.
Yeah.
And I do want to say that like he's depending on what the offices want, because like I think it's just like very like they're kind of deciding last minute, or not last minute, but they're like rolling out the updates with that. His office is saying that they may have to go back to the office in fall, I think, and they have one of their offices here in Denver, so we may move here, mostly because it's a little cheaper than San Francisco, and it's far enough away from my family that it's like, I don't know. We'll see. So back to Denver, and who knows where next. Oh no, I think we're going to move from this space in Denver to a different one, which is just like, I'm a little concerned because he just like doesn't feel the urgency when I say like, well, if we're going to move to a different place in here, we have to book a place now. Otherwise they're going to not be booked. Right. Like,
yeah.
Otherwise they're going to be booked and we won't have the space. So it's just like, can you like feel the urgency for fucking...
I'm sure that's something a lot of nomads struggle with. And we're all going to stay tuned because we can't wait to hear what happens in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to all our listeners for sticking in with us to hear about Kat's awesome adventure. If you haven't already, be sure to follow us on Instagram at The Cat and V Show and check out our other podcasts. How is that working for you? We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Off the dice.
Missed us? We don't care. We are back anyways.
Our format has changed a little bit, but the randomness lives on.
Ooh, ominous. Will we have guests?
If they'll tolerate us.
Did we scare them away with a random encounter or two?
Let's find out. Join Riza, Michelle,
And Scooter every Friday on all the things.
Stop wasting your time with others.
Pull up a chair and waste your time with us.
Let's talk off the dice.